Megan Foster had always been the responsible one. At 24, she had already mapped out the milestones of her life with precision and determination. A kindergarten teacher at Sunshine Elementary in Austin, Texas, she took pride in her classroom decorated with colorful educational posters and children's artwork. Her students adored her patient demeanor and creative teaching methods, often running to hug her legs when she arrived each morning. The principal had even mentioned she was on track for the Teacher of the Year award, despite being one of the youngest educators on staff. In the modest two-bedroom apartment she shared with her husband Daniel, Megan stood in the kitchen preparing dinner, the rhythmic chopping of vegetables providing a momentary escape from her thoughts. The laminate countertops were worn but clean, the furniture a mismatched collection of hand-me-downs and budget finds. Through the window, she could see the apartment complex's small pool, rarely used except on the hottest Texas days. "I'm home," Daniel called out, the door closing behind him. At 27, Daniel Foster was everything Megan's parents had approved of: stable, intelligent, and ambitious. His job as a software engineer at a growing tech startup provided them with health insurance and enough income to keep them afloat, though the weight of their combined student loans hung over them like a persistent cloud. "Dinner's almost ready," Megan replied, forcing a smile as he kissed her cheek. 2 years of marriage had established their comfortable routine. Dinner together, discussing their days, an episode of whatever show they were currently watching, and then an early bedtime to prepare for the next identical day. As they ate, Daniel enthusiastically described a new project at work. "The team's really excited about this one. Could mean a bonus if we deliver on time." Megan nodded, her mind drifting to the Instagram photos her college roommate had posted that day, backpacking through Europe with friends, faces flushed with adventure and possibility. Something Megan had planned to do before unexpected pregnancy fears had accelerated her and Daniel's relationship timeline. Though the pregnancy test had ultimately been negative, their marriage plans had already gained momentum. "Did you hear what I said?" Daniel asked, pulling her back to their small dining table. "Sorry, just tired from wrangling 25-year-olds all day," she replied, the lie coming easily. Later that evening, while Daniel showered, Megan scrolled through her phone, the blue light illuminating her face in the darkened living room. A Facebook notification caught her attention. Someone had approved her request to join Captivating Vision, professional and amateur photographers. Photography had been her passion since high school, though teaching had become her practical career choice. Her camera, a graduation gift from her parents, collected dust on a shelf most days. She scrolled through the group's photos, marveling at landscapes, portraits, and artistic compositions that made her fingers itch to hold her camera again. Impulsively, she posted one of her own photographs, a sunrise over Lady Bird Lake she'd captured on a rare morning walk. The notification came within minutes. "Rafael Dominguez commented on your photo." His profile picture showed a distinguished-looking man with salt and pepper hair and intense eyes behind stylish glasses. His comment was thoughtful and specific, beautiful capture of golden hour. The composition draws the eye through layers of light. "You have a natural talent for finding the extraordinary in ordinary moments." Megan smiled, tapping on his profile. Rafael Dominguez, 52, art dealer and gallery owner in Monterrey, Mexico. His page displayed sophisticated black and white portraits alongside colorful street photography from around the world. His gallery, Visions Authenticas, appeared elegant and successful in the photos. "Who are you texting?" Daniel asked, emerging from the bathroom. "No one," Megan said quickly, putting her phone face down. "Just checking emails." Over the following weeks, Rafael's comments on her increasingly frequent photo posts evolved into private messages. His insights into composition and lighting felt like a masterclass she'd never been able to afford. When he suggested a video call to discuss her portfolio, Megan hesitated only briefly before accepting. Rafael's face filled her screen one afternoon after school, his home office backdrop lined with photography books and what appeared to be expensive artwork. "Megan Foster," he said, his accent giving her name a musical quality. "Finally we meet face to face." Their scheduled 30-minute conversation stretched to 2 hours. Rafael was attentive and charismatic, asking questions about her techniques but also about her dreams and frustrations. When she mentioned feeling stifled, he nodded with understanding. "The artist's soul requires freedom to breathe," he said. "We die a little each day we deny our passion." Their video calls became daily occurrences, early mornings before Daniel woke up, lunch breaks in her classroom, and sometimes late at night when she claimed to be grading papers. Rafael sent her links to photography exhibitions, offered to critique her growing portfolio, and shared stories of his travels capturing images around the world. "You have something special, Megan," he told her during one late-night call, his voice low and intimate. "A unique perspective that deserves to be nurtured, to be seen." The validation was intoxicating. With Daniel, she was simply Megan the teacher, Megan the wife. With Rafael, she was an artist with untapped potential. Someone exciting. Someone with a future beyond lesson plans and mortgage pre-approvals. One night as they lay in bed, Daniel rolled toward her, noticing the glow of her phone beneath the covers. "It's almost midnight," he said, voice heavy with sleep. "Who are you texting?" Megan quickly darkened her screen, hiding Rafael's latest message about a photography retreat he was organizing. "Just checking Pinterest for classroom ideas," she replied, the lie slipping out with practiced ease. As Daniel drifted back to sleep, Megan stared at the ceiling, heart racing with equal parts guilt and anticipation. She knew what she was doing was wrong, yet couldn't bring herself to stop. For the first time in years, she felt truly alive. The package arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, the delivery driver requiring Megan's signature. She carried the unexpected box into her apartment, heart racing with anticipation. Inside lay a delicate silver bracelet with a small camera charm, nestled in black velvet. A handwritten note on cream-colored stationery read, "To remind you that beauty exists wherever you look, just as I see beauty whenever I look at you. Rafael." Megan's hands trembled as she clasped the bracelet around her wrist, the afternoon light catching the silver charm. Rafael had called her beautiful during their last late-night conversation, his voice dropping to an intimate whisper that made her skin tingle, but she hadn't expected a physical token of his affection. The gift both thrilled and unsettled her. That evening when Daniel commented on the new bracelet, she dismissed it as an impulse purchase from a local craft fair. The bracelet was just the beginning. Over the following weeks, bouquets of exotic flowers arrived at her classroom with notes quoting romantic poetry. Packages appeared containing perfume that Rafael claimed made him think of her, silk scarves in colors that would bring out the flecks of gold in her eyes, and books of love stories with passages highlighted specifically for her. "These words made me think of you, but they pale in comparison to what I feel," one note read. "No poet has captured the essence of what you've awakened in me." Their video calls evolved too. Rafael began sharing intimate details of his life, his divorce years ago, his loneliness despite his success, how Megan's smile had become the highlight of his days. "When you laughed yesterday, I felt something I haven't experienced in decades," he would say, his eyes intense through the screen. "Like a man dying of thirst who finally tastes water. I dream of you here with me in Monterrey," he told her one evening, his voice low and seductive. "Walking hand in hand through the old square as the sun sets, sharing a private dinner on my terrace overlooking the mountains." The suggestion that she could experience a passionate love affair worthy of novels planted seeds that grew with each conversation. Rafael began sending her photos of romantic locations they could visit together. Secluded beaches, luxury hotel suites, intimate candlelit restaurants. "With me, you could experience everything you've missed by marrying so young," he said, the possibility hanging in the air between them like a tantalizing promise. Life should be a passionate adventure, not a predictable routine in Austin. At home, the growing distance between Megan and Daniel became impossible to ignore. His attempts at physical affection were met with excuses of headaches and exhaustion as her mind constantly wandered to Rafael's romantic promises. When Daniel suggested a weekend getaway to rekindle their connection, Megan found reasons to delay. The secret video calls and text messages called to her more powerfully than her husband's embrace. Their intimate life withered completely as Megan found herself fantasizing about Rafael during Daniel's touches, imagining the passionate lovemaking Rafael described in their most private conversations. When we finally meet, I'll worship every inch of your body, he would promise, his voice husky with desire. I'll show you passion you've only read about in novels. 3 months into their digital affair, Rafael made his move during a late-night video call while Megan sat in her bathroom, door locked to keep Daniel from overhearing. I can't bear this separation any longer, Rafael said, his eyes intense with longing. Come to me in Monterrey next month. Megan's heart raced. I couldn't possibly. I've already booked you the honeymoon suite at the most romantic hotel in the city. When she hesitated, mentioning Daniel and her marriage vows, Rafael's expression darkened. I see, he said, pain evident in his voice. I've misunderstood what we share. I thought our love was real. It is real, Megan insisted quickly, panic rising at the thought of losing him. Then prove it. Choose me, Megan. The manipulation worked perfectly. That night, as she lay awake beside a sleeping Daniel, guilt and desire warring within her, Megan began to formulate a plan. The Texas Educators Conference in San Antonio emerged as the perfect cover. The preparations consumed her every waking thought. She checked her passport's expiration date, relieved to find it valid from a college trip to Canada years earlier. She began withdrawing small amounts of cash from their joint account, hiding the money in a jewelry box where Daniel never looked. Online, she researched the most romantic spots in Monterrey, saving photos of locations Rafael had promised to take her. The hotel confirmation email arrived on a Thursday afternoon. The Palacio Imperial in Monterrey looked like something from a romance novel in the attached photos. A 4-poster bed draped in silk, a private balcony overlooking the mountains, and a spa tub big enough for 2. So absorbed was she in this fantasy that she didn't hear Daniel enter the apartment, didn't notice him approaching until his voice cut through her daydream. What's this? He asked, looking over her shoulder at the screen. Megan's heart hammered against her ribs as she quickly minimized the window, but not quickly enough. Nothing, she said, the lie tumbling out. Just looking at dream vacations. You know, places we could go someday when we have money. Daniel's expression darkened. That looked like a hotel confirmation in Mexico. And who is Rafael Dominguez? A travel blogger, Megan insisted, forcing a casual tone. I follow his recommendations. The algorithm must have picked up that I was researching San Antonio for the conference and suggested Mexican destinations too. He seemed to tentatively accept this, moving to the kitchen to start dinner, but Megan caught him watching her more closely that evening. The morning of Megan's departure arrived with cold Texas rain, as if warning her against the journey ahead. She stood watching Daniel sleep, her packed suitcase waiting by the door, disguised as conference necessities rather than the romantic weekend she had fantasized about for months. I'm heading out, she said when Daniel stirred, forcing brightness into her voice. Registration starts at 9. Daniel pulled himself up, hair tousled from sleep. Let me make you breakfast. No time, Megan replied, avoiding his eyes. When he embraced her at the door, Megan felt a stabbing guilt. I love you, Daniel said, kissing her forehead. Call me when you get there. I will, she promised, the lie bitter on her tongue. As she walked to her car, she briefly considered turning back, but thoughts of Rafael pushed these doubts aside. The drive to Laredo stretched before her like a final boundary between her old life and the passionate adventure awaiting. Rain pounded her windshield as she navigated the highway. She sent Rafael a voice message at a gas station. I'm on my way, am I a more? She whispered, the endearment thrilling her. His response came 30 minutes later, shorter than expected, safe travels. Text when you arrive. At the border crossing, Megan's heart pounded violently. She had prepared a story about a teaching workshop, but the agent merely glanced at her passport and waved her through. Stepping onto Mexican soil, Megan felt a rush of exhilaration. She sent Rafael a selfie with the Welcome to Mexico sign, adding hearts, just 3 more hours until I'm in your arms. His response was delayed and oddly formal, looking forward to it. Had to reschedule our meeting point. We'll update soon. The bus terminal in Nuevo Laredo bustled as Megan purchased a ticket to Monterrey. The journey gave her time to reread their conversations, reliving the romantic promises. Occasionally, doubt would flicker. Why had Rafael's messages grown increasingly brief? But she dismissed these thoughts as nerves. The Mexican countryside rolled past her window, desert landscapes giving way to mountains. Megan sent 3 more messages to Rafael during the journey. His replies grew increasingly vague. Almost there, she texted as Monterrey skyline appeared. "Which terminal entrance will you be at?" "Change of plans," came his response after 20 minutes. "Unavoidable client meeting. Will send my associate Eduardo to collect you. Black suit, gray tie." Disappointment crushed through Megan. After months of anticipation, Rafael wouldn't even greet her? She typed with trembling fingers, "I came all this way. Can't your meeting wait? Business emergency. Eduardo will bring you to the hotel. I'll join soon. Trust me." The bus station in Monterrey was crowded and chaotic. When her phone rang with an unknown Mexican number, she answered immediately. "Megan Foster," a deep voice inquired. "I am Eduardo Vega. Rafael sent me to welcome you." At the eastern exit, a man in his late 40s leaned against a luxury sedan. His polished appearance was undermined by his eyes, cold and assessing, sending a shiver down her spine. "Señorita Foster," he greeted formally, taking her suitcase. "When will Rafael meet us?" Megan asked, hesitating before entering the car. "Soon," Eduardo replied with a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. The drive revealed a city far grittier than the romantic paradise Rafael had described. When they pulled up to the hotel, Megan felt another wave of unease. The Palacio Imperial stood in a rundown neighborhood, its exterior faded, nothing like the luxury retreat from Rafael's photos. "There must be some mistake," Megan said, not moving to exit the car. "No mistake," Eduardo replied, his tone hardening. "This is where Rafael arranged for you." The hotel's lobby was dimly lit and nearly empty. At reception, Eduardo spoke rapidly in Spanish, handing over Megan's passport before she could protest. The clerk's eyes flicked between them with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Rafael has arranged everything," Eduardo explained, guiding her toward the elevators. "He asked me to escort you to the room where he will meet you." As the elevator doors closed, sealing her in with this stranger, Megan's phone chimed with a final message from Rafael. "Eduardo will take care of everything until I arrive. Enjoy the champagne, mi amor." Yet the predatory smile spreading across Eduardo's face told Megan a very different story. One where she wasn't a lover being welcomed, but prey that had walked willingly into a trap. Daniel Foster stared at his phone screen, the unease that had been gnawing at him since Megan's departure growing stronger with each unanswered call. It had been nearly 16 hours since her last check-in text. A brief arrived safely. Sessions all day tomorrow message that now seemed suspiciously vague. With a restlessness he couldn't shake, he opened his laptop and navigated to the Texas Educators Conference website. 5 minutes of searching yielded nothing about a conference in San Antonio that weekend. Daniel's mouth went dry. He called the main education office number listed on the site, his knuckles white around the phone. "I'm sorry, sir," the administrator confirmed after checking the schedule. "We don't have any events in San Antonio this weekend. Our next conference is in Houston next month." Daniel's world tilted. The careful story Megan had constructed, the schedule she'd shown him, the colleagues she'd mentioned attending with, was entirely fabricated. With trembling fingers, he opened her laptop, still sitting on their desk. Her password no longer worked. After 3 failed attempts, he tried her birthday. The screen unlocked, revealing her search history: Monterrey, Mexico hotels, crossing border to Mexico, Rafael Dominguez Gallery, Monterrey. At Sunshine Elementary the next morning, the principal's concerned face only confirmed his fears. Megan didn't request professional development leave, Daniel. She called in a personal day, no explanation given. Desperate for answers, Daniel dug deeper into Megan's laptop. He found a hidden folder of screenshots from video calls with an older man, salt and pepper hair, expensive clothes, sitting in what appeared to be a luxurious office. In one image, The man held up a handwritten note, "For my beautiful Megan, counting the days until you're in my arms." Daniel's stomach clenched as he opened Megan's email. There in her drafts folder was an unsent message to her sister. "I've met someone who makes me feel alive again. His name is Rafael, he's from Mexico, and he's everything Daniel isn't. I know it sounds crazy." The email was dated 3 months ago. Daniel scrolled through her sent items, finding a confirmation for a bus ticket to Laredo and correspondence with someone named Rafael Dominguez, filled with intimate language and plans to meet. Cold fear gripped Daniel as he ended the call. He tried Megan's number again, this time leaving a voicemail. "Megan, I know about Rafael. Please call me. I just need to know you're safe." Minutes later, his phone vibrated with a text from Megan's number. "Something feels wrong." Hotel, not what he said. "Don't worry if you don't hear from me tonight." Then, nothing. Daniel contacted the Austin Police Department, who initially seemed reluctant to act on an adult who had left voluntarily. "Your wife has a right to go wherever she wants," the officer explained. "Even to visit another man." "She's in danger," Daniel insisted, showing them the text. "This isn't about our marriage. This is about her safety." The mention of a potential cross-border crime changed the officer's demeanor. Within hours, the case was escalated to state authorities, who contacted their Mexican counterparts and the FBI's International Operations Division. The Mexican police traced Megan's phone to the Palacio Imperial, a hotel with known connections to human trafficking operations. When they searched the room registered under Rafael Dominguez, they found Megan's abandoned suitcase and her camera. An officer connected the device to a computer, revealing the last images Megan had captured. The hotel exterior, clearly not matching the luxury resort promised, and a final disturbing shot, a partial image of Eduardo's face, his expression predatory, taken at an angle suggesting it had been shot secretly or in haste. "We've seen this man before," the Mexican detective told FBI agent Marcus Brennan over a secure video call. "Eduardo Vega. He works for a trafficking organization that targets American women through online scams." The hotel's security footage, grainy but usable, showed the final confirmed sighting of Megan Foster. At 8:42 p.m., she was escorted through the lobby by Eduardo Vega. Her body language tense, she glanced repeatedly at her phone. They exited to a black sedan waiting outside, Megan hesitating visibly before entering the vehicle. The security camera captured the car's license plate as it pulled away, a critical lead that would launch an international manhunt, but little comfort to Daniel as he stared at the last known image of his wife, disappearing into the Mexican night with a man who had evil intentions. Special Agent Maya Hernandez stood before the evidence board in the makeshift command center, her experienced eyes scanning the timeline of Megan Foster's disappearance. At 38, Hernandez had spent 12 years with the FBI's International Trafficking Task Force, specializing in cases that crossed the US-Mexico border. The faces of previous victims, some rescued, some only recovered, haunted her daily work. She was determined Megan would be among the former. "We've got media circling," Agent Thompson announced, entering with a stack of newspapers. "It's getting ugly." Hernandez glanced at the headlines. The Austin Chronicle showed Megan's teaching portrait alongside the security footage still. Local teacher's secret life leads to disappearance. The San Antonio Express News was more direct. Married teacher vanishes after meeting Mexican lover. The split narrative was already forming. Was Megan a victim of calculated predators or an adulteress who had invited danger? "The media can speculate all they want," Hernandez said, pinning a new document to the board. "We focus on finding her." The Monterrey police had made their first significant breakthrough. Rafael Dominguez's identity was a complete fabrication. The phone number he'd used to communicate with Megan traced back to a burner purchased with a stolen credit card. The IP addresses from their video calls originated from various internet cafes throughout Monterrey. "We've identified him," announced Detective Luis Ortega from the Nuevo León State Police, placing a mugshot on the table. "Victor Rojas, 54. Multiple aliases, suspected ties to the Alvarez trafficking network. He's been arrested twice but never convicted." Hernandez studied the photograph. The man's sophisticated appearance matched the images Megan had saved, salt and pepper hair, expensive clothes, practiced smile. Yet his eyes held a coldness that should have been warning enough. Rojas has a pattern, Ortega continued. He creates personas tailored to his targets: art dealer for aspiring artists, literary agent for writers, business mentor for entrepreneurs. He builds relationships over months, then invites the women to Mexico. The investigation uncovered 3 previous victims from the past 18 months, all American women in their 20s who had traveled to Mexico to meet Rojas. Each had been robbed of cash, credit cards, and identification. Unlike Megan, they had been released after forced withdrawals from ATMs and threatened against contacting authorities. Why is Megan's case different? Daniel Foster asked, his voice hollow as he sat in Hernandez's temporary office. The young husband hadn't slept in days, his eyes red-rimmed and desperate. Hernandez hesitated. The others were single women traveling alone. No one immediately reported them missing. The unspoken implication hung heavy in the air. Megan's quick disappearance might have been because authorities were already looking for her. The breakthrough came on day 4. Mexican authorities identified Eduardo Vega's vehicle at a compound 30 miles outside Monterrey. Satellite imagery showed the black sedan parked behind a high-walled estate officially registered as a weekend retreat for a Mexico City businessman with connections to the Alvarez network. Hernandez coordinated with the Mexican Federal Police, planning a carefully timed raid. The compound had to be approached with extreme caution. Previous operations against trafficking networks had resulted in desperate last-minute violence against captives. "We move at dawn," Hernandez told the Joint Task Force. Mexican Federal Police will secure the perimeter while specialized units breach the main house and outbuildings simultaneously. As final preparations were underway, Daniel Foster sat alone in his hotel room, scrolling through the recovered messages between Megan and Rafael. The FBI's technical team had extracted the full conversation history from Megan's laptop, revealing the methodical grooming that had occurred over 3 months. "You deserve passion that a young man like Daniel could never understand," Rafael had written. "At 24, you've barely tasted what life offers. Let me show you pleasure you've only dreamed of." Daniel's hands shook as he read Megan's responses, watching his wife fall deeper under this predator's spell. The intimate details she shared, the growing dissatisfaction with their marriage she expressed, the fantasies she described, each message was a knife twisting in his heart. Yet beneath his pain lay growing terror at Rafael's calculated manipulation. The man had identified Megan's every insecurity and exploited it masterfully, isolating her emotionally long before physically separating her from safety. Dawn operation commencing, Hernandez's text appeared on Daniel's phone at 5:17 a.m. He had insisted on being kept updated in real time, a request Hernandez had reluctantly granted. The compound raid was executed with military precision. Mexican Federal Police secured the grounds while FBI-trained units breached the main house and 3 outbuildings. In the chaotic minutes that followed, 6 men were arrested, including Eduardo Vega, caught attempting to flee through a hidden tunnel system. Victor Rojas was not among them. In a small room in the back of the main house, authorities found Megan's personal items, her wedding ring, passport, and the lingerie she had purchased for the trip, still with tags attached. Her phone lay shattered on the concrete floor. Blood spatter on the wall tested positive as human. Type O, Megan's blood type. "We've found something," Hernandez texted Daniel at 6:43 a.m. The final piece of evidence was recovered from a laptop in Victor Rojas' office, security footage from the hotel. It showed Megan realizing something was wrong, attempting to send a final text to Daniel, and Eduardo Vega discovering her. The footage ended with Eduardo forcing her from the room. The compound's groundskeeper, interrogated separately, finally broke under pressure. He described hearing a woman's screams the previous night, followed by the sound of shoveling at the far edge of the property. When asked why, his answer chilled even the most hardened investigators. Rojas got a call warning him about police in Monterrey asking about the American teacher, he said. They couldn't risk moving her, and they couldn't leave witnesses. As dawn broke fully over the compound, Mexican Federal Police began excavating an area of freshly turned earth beneath a stand of cypress trees, while Special Agent Hernandez prepared for the most difficult call of her career, telling Daniel Foster that their search for Megan had likely reached its tragic conclusion. The abandoned well was discovered on the third day of searching the compound. Partially concealed by overgrown vegetation and debris, it had been sealed with a hastily poured layer of concrete. When Mexican federal police broke through the makeshift seal, the grim discovery confirmed their worst fears. Megan Foster's body lay 20 feet down, wrapped in a plastic tarp secured with duct tape. The medical examiner determined she had been strangled before being disposed of in the well, a professional killing meant to silence her quickly. Daniel Foster received the news in the sterile conference room of the U.S. consulate in Monterrey, Special Agent Hernandez delivering the confirmation with quiet compassion. He made no sound as the words registered, his body simply folding in on itself, hands covering his face as if to hold back the tide of grief threatening to drown him. "We'll bring her home," Hernandez promised, her hand on his shoulder the only anchor in his suddenly shattered world. Victor Rojas was apprehended 3 days later at a private airfield outside Mexico City, attempting to board a plane to Venezuela with false identification. His capture made international headlines, his sophisticated appearance on perp walk footage contrasting sharply with the brutality of his crimes. Investigators discovered a laptop containing folders of potential targets, young, attractive women from Texas, Arizona, and California, all selected for their physical appearance and apparent vulnerability based on their social media profiles. Megan wasn't the first, Detective Ortega explained during the joint agency briefing. But she was different from his typical operation. The others were robbed and threatened but released. According to Eduardo Vega's confession, Megan realized something was wrong almost immediately upon arriving at the hotel. She attempted to leave, telling them she'd contact police. Surveillance footage recovered from Victor's personal files revealed the final hours of Megan's life in excruciating detail. The camera, hidden in the hotel room, showed her pacing nervously, repeatedly checking her phone as she waited for the real Rafael to appear. When Eduardo entered instead with 2 other men, her body language instantly changed, shoulders tense, backing toward the wall. "Where's Rafael?" Her voice trembled on the recording. "I want to leave. This isn't what I was promised." The men laughed, one of them moving to block the door. Megan's teacher instincts emerged as she attempted to take control of the situation, speaking calmly but firmly, "My husband knows where I am. I told him about Rafael. People are expecting to hear from me." It was a lie, but delivered with such conviction that Eduardo made a call, stepping into the hallway. The footage showed Megan's desperate attempt to use the moment to escape, lunging for the door only to be caught by one of the remaining men. When Victor himself entered the frame minutes later, Megan's expression shifted from fear to shock. "You're not the man I spoke to," she said, the realization dawning in her eyes. The man from the video calls had been an actor, while Victor, older, harder, had been orchestrating from behind the scenes. "Where's Rafael?" she demanded again. "There is no Rafael, Mrs. Foster," Victor replied with chilling politeness. "There never was." The camera captured Megan's desperate attempt to reach her phone, the moment she managed to send the partial text to Daniel before Victor struck her across the face, retrieved the phone, and instructed Eduardo to make sure she doesn't become a problem. The most disturbing footage, shown only to the investigators and later described in court documents, revealed Megan's final moments. After discovering hidden cameras and evidence of other victims in the hotel room, she had attempted to escape again. Victor, returning to check on their merchandise, found her trying to break the bathroom window. The ensuing struggle ended with Victor's hands around her throat. Megan's final words are defiant. "People will look for me. Daniel will never stop looking." "That's exactly the problem," Victor had replied before tightening his grip. The investigation uncovered the full scope of Victor's operation. Not just romance scams but a sophisticated human trafficking network that had exploited dozens of women. Many victims were still missing. Those who had been located were either too terrified to testify or had been silenced permanently, like Megan. A recovered audio recording from Victor's phone, timestamped just hours before Megan's death, revealed a chilling conversation about her fate. Victor had been on the phone with an associate, discussing Megan as if she were merchandise. "The teacher is more trouble than expected," he said. "Beautiful enough for premium buyers in Eastern Europe, but too aware, too defiant. Keeps talking about her husband searching for her. Can she be controlled? The voice on the other end asked. Doubtful. She's seen my face. Knows too much. Looks like we'll have to cut our losses. When presented during the trial, this evidence transformed the narrative around Megan's death. She hadn't simply been the victim of a romance scam gone wrong. She had been targeted for international trafficking, her teaching background and appearance marking her as valuable merchandise. Her resistance had saved her from a fate perhaps worse than death, but had also sealed her fate. The extradition process dragged on for 11 months, a complex legal battle involving 3 countries where Victor had committed crimes. Daniel attended every hearing, sitting silently in the back of courtrooms in Mexico City as lawyers argued jurisdiction and technicalities. Finally, under pressure from the highest levels of both governments, Victor was transferred to American custody to face trial in Texas, where prosecutors sought the death penalty. At the trial, photos of Megan's last moments alive were entered into evidence. Not the violent end, but images recovered from her own camera. In her final hours at the hotel, sensing something was wrong, Megan had secretly documented her surroundings. The photos showed the shabby hotel room, the men watching her, and a partial image of hotel paperwork listing previous occupants, evidence she had been gathering even as danger closed in. One final photo, apparently taken in haste, showed a corner of what appeared to be a ledger with names, countries, and amounts, evidence of a trafficking operation she had stumbled upon in the hotel room. It was this discovery, prosecutors argued, that had turned what might have been a simple robbery into murder. Megan Foster did not go quietly, the prosecutor told the jury. She fought. She gathered evidence. She tried to leave breadcrumbs for investigators to follow. Even facing certain death, her final act was to try to help others who might fall victim to these predators. In the Austin Federal Courthouse, Daniel sat directly behind the prosecutor's table each day, forcing himself to look into the eyes of the man who had methodically seduced and murdered his wife. Victor remained impassive, occasionally whispering to his attorneys but never acknowledging the widower's presence. The prosecution built their case meticulously, presenting thousands of messages exchanged between Victor and Megan alongside Eduardo's damning testimony secured through a plea deal. The jury heard the recorded confession where Victor admitted to strangling Megan himself, describing it as unfortunate but necessary when she threatened to expose their operation. She was special, Victor had told Eduardo in the recording. Beautiful enough for premium buyers. Such a waste. The words echoed in the silent courtroom, revealing how Megan had been selected not just for a scam but potentially for something far worse before her resistance forced their hand. Eduardo's testimony provided the most complete account of Megan's final hours. After discovering the hidden cameras, she had tried to reason with him, appealing to his humanity. She told me she had students who loved her, Eduardo testified, avoiding Daniel's gaze. She showed me pictures of her classroom on her phone. She said she just wanted to go home and would tell no one what happened if we let her go. According to Eduardo, Megan had maintained her composure even as the situation grew more dire. When Victor returned to the hotel room that night, she had attempted to negotiate. "I have money in my bank account," she had told him. "My husband has more. Take it all. I won't say anything. Please." But Victor had only laughed. "This was never about money, Mrs. Foster," he had replied. "Not the small amounts someone like you could provide." It was then, Eduardo testified, that Megan truly understood the danger she was in, not just to herself but to other women Victor might target in the future. Her teacher's instinct to protect had emerged even in her darkest hour. When Daniel took the stand, he spoke not of anger but of the Megan few in the courtroom knew. The passionate teacher who stayed late helping struggling students, the young woman who dreamed of traveling the world with her camera, the wife who had lost herself somewhere along the way. She deserved to find herself, Daniel testified, his voice steady despite his tears. She deserved to be unhappy with me if that's what she felt. She deserved to leave me if that's what she wanted. But she deserved to live. The jury deliberated for less than 5 hours before returning their verdict. Guilty on all counts. Victor Rojas received multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole, his sophisticated operation dismantled as authorities continued tracking down accomplices across 3 countries.